they know it was a hidden agenda. So he would say, पिछले महीने ये product का service बहुत अच्छा था, अभी बहुत खराब हो गया. So that was, there was no transparency.
Point of purchase,
right?
decision making was very critical.
Right. So that led me to start Next as a retail, which was unbiased counseling approach, where I said, I will front end the entire retail part with the consumer. There will be no interface with the manufacturer. I will do the installation. The only one reason I wanted to do the installation is the minute you get into the consumer's home for an install, I was able to do a home audit and map every single product and ownership profile, which later on can be used and harnessed to go back. Now, if you were to look at, how does this translate later, which we'll come to in the next part. Let Kiran and everyone answer their experiences. I think it has beautifully panned out into another field which I'm now working, which is automobiles, which is very similar in terms of cycle.
Interesting. Kiran, starting with you, what cost, according to you, did brands, agencies in pre-digital era put on having a conversation with the consumer and deriving value out of that? Do you think that was a very, very important aspect of their marketing journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would second what Nitish said, and so let me just go back to my in the 90s. So when I was fresh out of campus and I took up my first job with Merck Electronics. So most of you would know Merck owned the brand called Oneida, right? The devil that you're all familiar with. So I used to do channel sales for Oneida for a few years. And that was a time when, if you look at brand conversations, there was of course pre and there was post, right? So one was when you were communicating the brand to the end consumer. And second is the experience that the consumer went through at a retail store, which also had to do with a conversation, right? A lot of it was conversation-led. So the pre-brand, which is, before the campaign was launched or before the great advertising idea was born, I think I would tend to agree with Nitish that a lot of it was focus groups to build insights. And then if I were to take it to a different extreme, and I was also supporting a beverage brand for Hindustan Levers. That time it used to be called Brook Bond Lipton. And I was mentioning this in the other panel, and their experience of the conversation with the customer was through actually tea tasting. So you actually get your customers to sample tea early in the morning and then start a conversation over a cup of tea to find out whether they liked the consistency, they liked the color, they liked the liqueur. So all of those conversations were
How much investment did brands at that time put into all of this? From their marketing budget, would it be 1%, 2%? And how much value did they place of their decisions post this conversation analysis?
Absolutely, good point here. So I think if you were to put a number to it, if you take a brand like Oneida, I would say anywhere between 3.5–4% going into market research. And when I say market research, I mean qualitative research that brings out insights. Now the post-launch phase, very interesting. So if you take a consumer durable brand, I'm sure most of it is common to cars, to automobiles as well. The concept of product demonstrators was very powerful, and they were the people who actually had conversations with consumers as they walked in, and created value for the consumer or understood feedback from the consumer about what's not selling for the brand. Some people walked in saying, Oneida to devil hai, main devil kaise khareed sakta hu ghar ke liye. So some of those perceptions were actually feedback back to the brand. So a lot of investments went into that as well.
So
brand conversations.
that's a great example, but I'll roll that back. And then my next question on what do you think it would have been like had it been today? Yeah. So Rohina, even today you have conversations with customers both offline and online. And given the business that you're in, offline and in-person meeting still holds a lot of value. How has online impacted, if at all, your business today? So like coming in, and how do you think, how much of importance do businesses like yours still place on offline conversations, both for sale conversion, service, as well as insight building?
So for us, when our customer has to walk in, a lot of times his decision is actually made before he walks in. So it's not that he came in and then he decided he wants to buy with us, or he wants to buy into the brand or not. He probably has made 90% of his decision before he walked in. It's either because another friend of his told him to, and since we're not, nothing we do is a necessity. So you don't need to buy from Atelier, you don't need a product from Laurent. If you want it, you'll have it. So the reason why should you want it is where it's a lot more important for us to build your want in us rather than your need in us. And so if a friend tells another friend that, I went and shopped from here, the first thing they would do is go online to see who we are, what we do, and what we've been doing. So I would think it's more of checking us out in terms of, are we worthy of coming into?
So like a robo effect, research online, buy offline.
Yes. Yeah. And then they would, come in to the store. So that's really how this connect works for us. So yes, we have to be present in terms of, if you were to visit our Facebook page, it's very regularly updated. And it's more like an FYI notice board.
But would you say that now coming from the offline to the online world, a business like yours, can it do without a complete online presence? Can it still be as effective and successful, or online presence as an FYI notice board is a must-have?
It is a must-have.
It is a must-have.
It is a must-have.
For even you. Yes. While a lot of your conversions still happen
it's
offline.
more convincing. So if one friend told me it's great, then I went and checked online, and it's like a second friend telling me it's all about this, right, versus waiting for a second one to come and talk to me.
Understood. All right. That's very interesting. Let's come to today. We've talked about how much effort and money brands put into offline conversation analysis and stuff like that. Today, there is a lot of digital, there is social, there is mobile, there is video. All of that is happening together. A lot of brands are investing money in it. In one, discussion right now, I want to analyze what, according to you, is the value of an online conversation, right? Is there a value, and is it different for B2C versus B2B brands?
So Rajiv, I think, conversations online is extremely valuable for someone like me, who's in the business of durables. So whether it was consumer durables or automobiles, the one common factor here is it's very important for me or anyone in our team to reconnect with the consumer, because the buying cycle in our business is very long. The average life of a product is anywhere from 7 or 8 months when you talk about a mobile phone, to about 7 years for a car. So it's very, very important. Also, every single product that we market and sell has a service element. So the potential or the chances of a consumer giving bad news is much higher than good news. And it's extremely important for us to have those conversations online, because that helps me build affinity to the brand. Because if I don't respond in a transparent manner, it can be detrimental to our brand.
So I understand when you say that online conversations for a durables company causes damage, because you have a after-sales service is a large part of your consumer engagement process.
So
right?
I'm not saying it causes damage. I'm
right.
saying if it's not transparently handled, it can cause damage.
In essence,
it can also be very positive, okay? So I'll give you 2 examples on how it was positive and how a negative became a positive.
Okay.
So let's talk about one of the online deployments that we did, which is when we launched our first car in India. It was the Micra. We had a brand ambassador, which was Ranbir Kapoor. And we thought of doing something very different. So we launched a campaign called the New Star of India, only on Facebook. So this was in 2009 when we launched the car, where we spent about 15 crores in absolute terms in this entire deployment, out of which about 5 or 6 crores was spent on the film. The triggers were, the film was with Ranbir Kapoor, and we gave the chances for Facebook users, subscribers, to act in the film. So it was all about acting with Ranbir Kapoor. The result was we got about 600,000 fans in 30 days. We then went back to these consumers and wanted to know what is it that they're seeking. So one was, out of the 600,000 fans, 350 of 400,000 fans was for Ranbir Kapoor. It was nothing to do with Micra, the fact that they wanted to act with him. But then we still had all these people who we could have conversations. Those conversations were still a monologue. So it was directed from the brand to this as a dissemination of information about the Micra. What we realized post that is we got a lot of feedback about the product not being for me. It was too feminine. The product looked very feminine. It was a cult car. Also, maybe the colors that we started with, we had a kind of a rust car or an amber kind of a thing. So it did not result into sales. But what it helped us is we then looked at how do we now use this to spin off a product design or a product change. We still are a conventional company, okay? We are Japanese, very, very traditional. So what we did is we did not look at just those triggers on a conversation. We picked up these people who were conversing into the real world. So we picked them up, we called them, and still did a focus group, versus another focus group which is done traditionally. The results were pretty similar from both. So it gave us the confidence that we could do this conversation online at a much cheaper cost. Okay, so the value was, in terms of pure rupee terms, was much, much lower. The life cycle, the product change cycle is very large. It's about 5 years. So the result was a change in the product, which was the Micra, which was far more masculine. So this is how it translated based on conversations. Another conversation that started off is we started realizing that there are a lot of people on blogs. There were bloggers, there were social conversations, and there was general speak about a particular problem we had, again with the Micra, which is we started getting information that our brakes are making noise, right? We then started speaking to these consumers, and the way to speak was our conversation was about directing them to a service center for a routine check. Okay, we then started noticing a trend that there was a brake problem with the car. So we addressed it in a very transparent manner by saying that, yes, there is a problem. We accept we have a problem, but why don't you come over and we'll probably, somewhere we gave a 3-month extended warranty, we gave a service and things like that. People were pretty happy, okay? It helped us identify a worldwide brake problem in the car. So in a normal situation in the offline world, I have not come across a brand which has announced a recall in the offline world. But looking at the way we kind of addressed this transparently, consumers were pretty happy. And then we started noticing a trend. Every brand in the last 2 years has announced a recall across the world. So whether it was a Mercedes, an Audi, a Honda, a Toyota, Volkswagen, all of them have had recall problems. And I don't think the consumer has taken offense to something like a recall, which in the offline world would have been disaster. So I think online conversations, monitoring it, leading to something I call crowd surfing, okay, where I can pick conversations, helps. And that is, I'll later on tell you how it has helped us, because we are across the world, right? We have different sites across the world, and anything that happens, let's say in Mexico, is going to impact a consumer in India or in the UK. So we have done a deployment, which I'll come to later, on how we've unified all our conversations into a common NOC, right? So it has definitely helped us, and we are now monitoring these conversations and addressing that.
So you gave 2 examples. One was about a marketing campaign feedback analysis through digital and social conversation. Another was a product feedback analysis through digital
leading
and social.
to a design change.
Design change. Very interesting. Kiran, You obviously represent, the B2B side of things, and your company builds tools and technologies. Today, what is possible for a brand in B2B to analyze and track, and what kind of business benefits can a B2B business see from social media conversation tracking? So let's look at what are the possibilities today, and then thereby hence what are the imperative benefits.
So Rajiv, I'll try and probably respond a little differently to this one. I'll come to the second part, but what I wanted to also share here was while we heard about this whole online offline journey, kind of fusing at some place, and all brands have the experience of going through both phases. See, when it comes to technology or say B2B, the business we are in, we can't underestimate or underpin the importance of the offline part of the sales process. So unfortunately, we can't even undermine the online part of the sales process, because if you look at our business, close to 60% of our customers, and we call them customers, not consumers, because they're not really the end users, right? So 60% of our customers complete their journey of purchase online. So when I say journey of purchase, it could be discovery, it could be learning, it could be fact finding, it could be comparing with competition. So that's really the trend. So it becomes complex because that's one part of the journey. And when you have a sales organization that is not in line with the digital transformation that's going on, then that actually puts a lot of load on the marketing organization of a company like ours. That's where teams like us, we are more involved in trying to do customer targeting, finding where the customers are, creating a single view of the customer. And once you get the data, and then you take those insights back to the sales team, then they take over and complete the sales process in the face-to-face, in a face-to-face manner. So ultimately, what I'm saying is, you cannot really discount either of the phases. So one leads to the other, and then marketing would play a key role in a B2B company like ours in the first phase, because it's all about digital discovery, and we believe we carry the core skills. The second part is where sales takes kind of.
But see, building a business one conversation at a time is very relevant from an offline sense.
Right.
Is it possible from an online digital
Absolutely.
Perspective as well? So can you throw some light on that?
So if I were to give you some examples of and simplified examples of technology at play, we could talk about first thing that we want to create for any account or any client is what we call a single view of the client, right? Single view of the customer. So we tell our customers there are technologies that you can use to help you understand your customer and who the person is, because at the end of the day, you can't prevent your customer's customer being on social media. He's going to be all over social media. He's going to be calling you on a mobile. He's going to be logging into your website. He's going to be blogging, tweeting. But you have to understand that you're talking to the same customer, right? So first thing is to get a single view. And there's a technology that helps our customers find out who the client is, right? Yeah. Second is, you could also get into an area called predictive analytics, which is a lot about, looking at data, analyzing data, and actually running algorithms to kind of predict what's going to happen with that data if it's trending in a certain way. And that helps our customers make better decisions.
So you're saying today there is technology available to know that this is a banking customer, let's say, for example,
right.
And he's also, blogging, he's social media,
right.
He's on social media, you can see his purchase intent across e-commerce sites if he's used a banking credit card,
correct.
And also suggest him maybe offers and marketing tools.
Absolutely. So the whole concept of cross-channel optimization, because he's across different channels, and how do you make sure that the experience to the customer is unified across channels is another way in which technology can play a role. And content analytics, very importantly, because today you're on social media, and you can go and for example track which are the hashtags are trending, but what are they talking? What is the content
but
in the
are
hashtag?
marketers, in your view, the ones that you deal with, or agencies, putting enough importance on the value of a conversation for building business and brand both?
I think they are. And the more in fact, I've been meeting many of these people here in this forum, and I think the more I talk to them, the more I feel that there's a lot going on in the digital world, and a lot of investments from full service agencies, from specialized digital firms, from technology companies like ours. Like, I mean, you take us, you take, SAP, who's a partner here. I think most of us are investing in this area today.
Right. Interesting. Rohina, while online seems to be going this path of faceless, we have 5 minutes more? Oh, great. Yeah. While online seems to be going through this path of faceless engagement and taking it right from a purchase discovery to a purchase intent to a purchase completion, I believe you are of the point of view that, and which Kiran also pointed towards, is that the offline conversation one-to-one for business building can never be replicated. You also gave an example earlier, of how even for a conference like this. So if you can throw some light on that, right?
Yeah, I come from the school of thought that you cannot replace offline with just online. I don't think any of you here could have had the same experience looking at a YouTube video which you're sitting here in the same room and doing. So I don't think they can replace each other, but they've got to work together. So as much as importance we do give on every online experience, online engagement, how the brand or the companies are seen online, it's as important that that conversation and that much effort is also in actually when we meet them. And I feel that's cannot be negated at any point of time. We have customers, no matter how much you can do, we're on WhatsApp, so when we're trying to communicate, when they call, you're so used to everything being instant or everything being, when I type, I get. Today, you even want humans to react like that. So you say, if I want this now, I want it now. And you're not ready to wait. And in the segment we are, it's, every customer is used to being a VIP. The banks, they're all the privy members, they're all the high-end members. So everywhere they're used to being pampered to such an extent that I don't know where the line's going to be and what it is going to be. But I think at least what we are trying to move is where everyone is happy to say we're a call center which is 9:30 to 5:30, Monday to Friday. I feel it's got to be 24 hours and 7 days a week to really give them that experience and talk to them. And we've got to stop automated voices, and they've got to come on straight on and says, yes, tell me what it is.
So very interesting contradictions here. So what you're talking about is a personalized real-time 24/7 servicing, but there are others in digital world who like it impersonal, my time, my way, right? And that's happened there. And these are two really interesting worlds that are parallelly existing.
Let me actually just add one thing to you. When a client walks into our store, he doesn't want to be spoken to.
Interesting.
He wants you to stand at a distance and only come in when he needs you or she. But that's what I'm saying. But when they want it now. Yeah. So you've got to be literally like those you stand at attention and you're waiting. The moment you're called for, you're ready to answer it, you're ready to respond. So it's not that we can go out and just keep talking to anyone. We can't.
Yeah, so we're talking about
permission oriented. It's very
personalized,
yes,
opted in.
Yes, it's all opted in, and you've got to wait for them to ask. But the minute they ask, you have to respond.
So in the interest of time, one final question to everyone, right?
So before you talk about that, the last point, I would not completely agree with you, because I look at this entire medium as a conversation tool. It's just another communication medium. And I think it's very, very, very advantageous. Today in the offline world, what do? I build a whole organization, and then I have SOPs. Ultimately, who is front-ending the brand with the consumer? There are only two people: my sales counselor at the showroom and my service advisor at the service center. For me, the dream is, how do I now replicate that using online to basically respond back to the consumer at the moment he asks, which is what your desire is. So I think the challenge here is not about whether we have technologies and digital technologies can do all this. I think the biggest challenge here is, how do I abdicate myself, okay? from the top and empower people down to respond. Okay? It needs a very mature way of working for the philosophy to translate back to allow my service advisor to respond back to the consumer, because that is the face that the consumer has seen. Now, if he is the same face who has responded back to the consumer, there is going to be consumer delight. In the offline world, that's how it works. Why are we not empowering him in the online world? Okay, it's very simple. So the challenge here is we need now to work this whole machinery and infrastructure to resource up and mentor the team and empower them to do this. Once that is done, I think this entire digital world and conversations in the digital world will blend beautifully with the offline to give you absolute delight to the consumer.
But I think from a futuristic standpoint, I think what Rohina said and what Nitish said about personalized opted in, when I want, whenever I want it, personalized service. And there is obviously a group of other people who would want an impersonal, don't tell me what to do, I know my stuff, engagement, where they want to take their decision independent of any human intervention. Which of these two you see increasing in the future, and why? Right? So where's the future of online conversations or conversations for businesses, and which side are you on?
So
right?
I don't think anything is going to change. Let's simplify this whole thing, right? Yes, so definitely in the retail world, there are products and there are services where a consumer, it's always one of the two. I need help and may I help you, right? So these are the 2 points which will always remain. But the challenge and the beautiful thing about working this whole thing is, how do we blend the two? If we can work this, it is definitely going to work. And one point in marketing which will not change is, everyone works on emotions. I don't think you can crystallize any of the consumer's mind map into a logical methodology for him to buy. If you can trigger his emotion, he is going to get attracted to your brand, and the logical conclusion is going to be a sale.
And that doesn't matter whether that emotion is triggered by online.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Your thoughts?
I think I would second that, because it's like night and day. You can't say that we'll complete the end-to-end process or transaction online and deliver the same experience as what you would have delivered if the last mile was, say, offline, face-to-face, right? So in the technology world, at least, customers do discovery on their own, like you said. That's 60% of the time. But the last 40%, they do need hand-holding. They need someone to come and deliver the proof of technology or explain how it works, because it's becoming complex too. There's so much to choose from. There's only so much you can learn and so much you can, say, shortlist and decide online. But then when it comes to the crux, when it comes to making a purchase decision, you certainly need people who understand that technology better to handhold you and consult with you and help you complete that sale. So
yeah,
it's always required, I think.
Rohina, any last famous words?
I'd second him on it. When I want to do my discovery, I don't want someone talking to me, and we're happy to do it over the net. But then when I have a question and I don't want online to answer me, not because online can't or I can't do it on my own, I don't want to do it on my own. And at that point, any brand should be available to its customer.
Interesting. So summarizing the panel, I think very interestingly, as we go more personalized, we go more instant with the learning on online, servicing offline becomes that much tougher. And that's what Rohina reflected upon, that people now want us not to help them, but want us to be on standby and help them whenever they want us to help them, right? And it's almost like instant now, right now, which is it's a kind of a ripple effect from how online works, where you have an instant reply within 4 or 5 seconds. On the online and the digital stuff, there is still a long way to go to translate a face-to-face conversation into digital. It is possible, but yet a lot of brands have not moved into that. Yet online becomes a great resource pool for analyzing conversation and doing what you call as post-mortem checks on did we do the right campaign, do we have the right product, and the effect of any action that a business takes can be analyzed and prepared for in the online space. Clearly, as these two worlds start converging more and more, there is an opportunity in the future to see people experiencing things without actually being present. You know, there are tools like the Oculus today where you can experience things without being actually there at a store. And as the world moves forward, maybe there'll be a virtual reality option that will allow you to be as real yet as digital, to be able to experience and engage and converse all at the same time. In the interest of time, I think we can take one question if there is anyone who has a question in the audience. Right? Any questions? There's one there. Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you.
So, one of the key dangers of being present online is reputation management, right? So, you guys mentioned about how you managed some break problem that you had, but that is something that you guys identified before itself, and you managed it before somebody. No, it is not the case.
No, we never identified. We were able to get this only based on triggers, on conversations from consumers about the fact that they were blogging that, my break is giving a problem. So it was a consumer conversation that led us to identify a problem.
So a lot of times we face, negative feedback on our social media channels.
Yeah.
So what are one thing you mentioned, that being transparent with the customer, that is a given. But what are the other key things that brands should do to go about this whole science of online reputation management?
Simple answer: fix the problem. Just resolve the issue. Because let's be very clear, there is no consumer who is going anywhere and trying to damage your brand because he likes to. Because you need to value the consumer's time, right? Unless, there could be an isolated case, but in 9 out of 10 cases, he has a problem, just fix it.
Agree, but there are times that, there are no instant fixes to problems. It could be a technology problem which takes its own development cycle. It could be anything. So these things take time. So during that time, as marketers, how would you manage that in the online space? Because online is, it's a ripple effect. If you can't manage it in time, it's going to do a really real harm. So
that is the challenge that needs to be resolved, but that's not, you can't negate it. So it is a consumer's problem, and if you can't resolve it, like we said, you've got to see how you can calm them down and deal with them. Rather than, I give you an example, a couple of weeks ago, I had an issue with Airtel 4G. We have a couple of connections in our office, and the entire thing dropped out. My people in the office kept complaining, kept calling, did everything possible, and not for a day, but probably 3 to 4 days. Finally, my admin manager came to me and she said, "Can you tweet it?" And I said, fine, and then I went and I tweeted it. I had it resolved in 2 hours. I have only one thing to say back from the brand: they could have done it in 2 hours, they didn't do it in 4 days. So if you as a brand have to understand that, every customer is important, and don't drive your consumer out there. So you've got to find a solution. Just tweeting back, "We will resolve this at the earliest," is not a solution, which is what they did. But it was resolved in 2 hours. So what's doable should be done. And I think, like he said, customers there out of 9 out of 10 is a problem. So how you manage it, what you manage it, we've got to build our customer service networks, our offline networks, our technical supports, everything to a level that we are able to instantly, because patience is zero. So, you've got to deal with that.
So if I may just add 2 more points to what she said. I think the first tenet would be what we would call: do not defend, do not deflect, and do not deny. I think if you follow that, I think the brand needs to acknowledge that the consumer is intelligent. The consumer has come to you with a problem, and the consumer can make or break the brand ultimately. I mean, let's also understand the power that today is in the hand of the consumer. Second is, do not give a standard answer to any question, because the question is never a standard question. So every question is customized because it's very close to the consumer. So do not give a standard response. "I will come back to you in 2 hours, please bear with us," may not be an acceptable answer on social media, right? I mean, because the law of averages don't work on social media. It's very individualized, very personalized, very customized. I think if you give that sense to the consumer or someone who's angry with your brand, even if you haven't solved the problem, you've at least tackled the first milestone of saying, I'm with you and we'll solve the problem. Then I understand you as an individual, and not, I don't look at you as a law of averages and say you're this group of customers to me. You're this individual who has this particular problem, and I empathize, I understand. So if you give that sense, I think, that's what we all do, whether it's offline or online, it doesn't matter.
So I'll just add, the same case, how many people know that Mercedes-Benz had a disaster of a problem 5 years back in the United States? Their most luxurious car, which is the S-Class, had a problem where the battery would burst. Okay, and they had two batteries. One was in the boot of the car, and they kept telling consumers, saying that it's not a car problem, it's a battery problem, right? There was a queue of consumers who came back with their cars to dealers saying, we want to return the car. Okay, the last 2 years, when every brand has accepted a problem and said, we'll address it, please come to the service center, we'll address it. And there is no consumer who has ever complained or who has gone against the brand. In fact, their brand affinity has only improved. Okay, so just be very honest.
All right, I think that's it from the panel. Thank you, Kiran. Thank you, Nitish. Thank you, Rohina. It was a great panel. Please give them a hand, guys.